Hey, and welcome to our first video here on the channel, Lorcana with your kids. My name is Mike, and I started this as an outlet to share some of the things I've learned as a new to trading card game playing. Um, Father of two. We're a Disney family. We've enjoyed going to the parks a few times. Big fan of the movies and the different TV shows, Disney Plus and all that, but Lorcana has been an evolution of our family love for Disney, and it's actually something that over the past few months we've been into it for, I want to say, coming up on 3 months right now, and it's been awesome for the whole family. And we've gotten the kids on board. My wife will even dabble a little bit right now, and it's just been it's a great game. It's something I really enjoy, and I kind of wanted to start a channel of for new to the game parents. I found it very difficult at first to figure out, first of all, how the game actually worked. There was a little bit of stumbling through that, and I think I found my way to some different avenues now that I think are useful tools that I can share with others. And so that's what we're going to do here. A little bit about our card journey. I'm a longtime baseball fan. I've been collecting baseball cards and memorabilia for as long as I can remember. I want to say over 35 years now, starting to show my age. But um, so I've taken a lot of pride and fun out of collecting sports memorabilia, preserving it. So the collector in me has always been interested in trading card games, but it wasn't until I had my son. My son's going on 8 years old. My daughter just turned six. And probably around the time my son was 3 or 4, he took an interest in Pokemon cards. So that was kind of our entry into trading card games. It's not something that I ever had exposure to growing up. I must have missed the boat on that. But either way, he enjoyed the TV shows, was starting to really get into it. And I saw the opportunity to say, well, I can take some of my love of collecting, start teaching it to my kids through an avenue that they would enjoy in Pokemon. And so for the last few years, we've been doing that. We've been casually playing the game at home as well, with the Pokemon Battle Academy, which is a beginner's tool to teach you how to get through a basic game there and kind of have some fun at home. Sort of prepares you for the next step. And so what I'm going to do is sort of follow the same path we did with Lorcana. Anecdotally, we had opened a few packs of first chapter around the time it came out. We were buying Pokemon; it would be there at the store, so I grabbed a couple, and then I just kind of took the cards, looked at them, thought it was great. We weren't quite Disney family at that point. We've since been Disney World 3 times in the last 2 years, so it's really grown on our family, and we've really enjoyed the time and memories spent and made there. But no, so the but around Christmas time, we just gotten back from a vacation to Disney. I'd seen Lorcana about. I was looking for something to bridge the gap between my son and his love of Pokemon and my daughter's growing love of Disney characters. Um, and trying to figure out something that we like to play board games at home. We do that often. We have family movie nights. They're often Disney movie nights. So how do I kind of get this all together and still group it into an area where I can help to teach them about collecting, preserving, taking care of your valuable assets over time. And at the same time, we can collect together. And so what I've actually started to do is I've started to streamline some of my baseball collectors and funnel it into Pokemon at first and Lorcana now. And I think this is kind of the wave of the future here for our family. So um, but when I first started up, I had a couple starter decks, didn't really know how to play the game. The mechanics seemed weird to me. I'd never had any exposure to anything similar. Pokemon is different. I guess it's a similar style game, but it is different in the way it executes. So it wasn't immediately obvious to me how do I play this game, and more importantly, how do I teach my kids how to play the game. So um, Lorcana has a website, disneylorcana.com, and you can kind of go through it. They do have some different tutorials, but I didn't find any of it helpful. It's a good place to find current news if you're getting into this, or you want to kind of see it through and find up to date news. It's a good avenue. Also, there's Facebook collectors groups, there's Discord channels, there's YouTube, plenty of great YouTube, Instagram, and the like. Content makers that I think do an excellent job of keeping you abreast of that stuff. So that's not really what I'm going to focus on here. My focus is on how I introduced my kids to the game, and how we're evolving our understanding of the game, our proficiency at it, and then now getting to the next level here a few months later. So, the first thing I would suggest doing, and I think it's a no-brainer, is to pick up the Lorcana Gateway product. It says $39 Canadian here. I'm based out of Canada, but I've seen this on sale over the holidays at Target for $6 American, $12 American through different promotions and websites and stuff. I think $25 Canadian or less. You can probably find it anywhere. I found this extremely helpful. No YouTube tutorial, no amount of trying to research or reading through literature on how to play the game helped me to understand, and also my kids as well, how to play this game as this one. And really what it does is it breaks it down into different steps. It takes a very basic starter deck, very basic mechanics, and plays you through a round pretty seamlessly, to make you understand how things work, how inking cards work, how challenges and questing, all that kind of stuff works. And it comes on a nice, easy to use game board, easy to track your lore as you lore as points. If any of the terminology I'm using you're not familiar with and you're still sort of stuck in how do I teach my kids, this is the product for you. I think we played through 3, 4, maybe 5 rounds of the Gateway with some very basic, easy to understand, simple movement cards, not too complicated in terms of like combos or different things like that. Locations was something that's also added in later iterations, but doesn't get into that. It helps you to play in a similar style to a board game with fun, beautiful characters and colors. All of your kids' favorites are in there: Mickey Mouse, Stitch, Elsa. It's all in the starter deck, so it can hook them right off the top. And quite frankly, you can't go wrong. I think anybody, as long as your kid can read, which is another separate story. I use the Lorcana cards as an incentive to help my daughter read. So she's at a point now in grade 1 where her reading skills are developing, but they're not quite where we as a family hope they would be. So, when we open packs of cards now, my daughter, she wants to have one of those cards for her binder, and that's really her main thing. She will play a little bit with us, but more often than not, she's interested in collecting the different art cards of the different characters. I've bought her a binder, and she starts to put them in by the movie or by the franchise, making sure that when we open a pack, whether or not she has a double or not. So I think that's really cool. But she can't have one of those cards for her binder until she reads the card. At least the character, probably a little bit of a description underneath, and then if she's done that and she's been successful, and at least she's tried to sound it out phonetically or get to as far as she can, then I'll help her the rest of the way if it's something odd. Obviously, the character's name is probably known, and it's a little bit cheating. So often on cards here, they'll have a description underneath. For example, in this one, Donald Duck, it says boisterous fowl. I wouldn't necessarily expect her to read that, but on the Jafar, wicked sorcerer, if she could get through most of that, sounding it out phonetically, Jafar would go in her binder with her Aladdin collection. So I think, to me, basically beyond 4 or 5 games of this with my son, we were ready for the next step. But even so, if you never plan to leave the house and always just want to play family game night or one-on-one with your kids, you could do this and you could get a lot. You could use the Gateway product, get a lot of life out of it, and never buy anything else again. And I think you'd still be happy with your time in Lorcana. If you want to evolve to the next level, or if your family has a little bit of knowledge of Magic the Gathering, which is a very similarly structured game to Lorcana. It's the predecessor, sort of the king of the trading card game world outside of Pokemon, maybe for collectors, Magic for players. You can kind of go either way on the player side there. Pokemon's got a huge following. Lorcana's trying to get there. But if you want to skip all of that and you feel like, okay, I've got a pretty good idea of how to play trading card games, I just want to get into Lorcana proper, depending on the age of your kids and your interest in whether or not you want to do something that may be a little bit more collectible or a little bit more current, I would suggest looking into a Lorcana first chapter starter deck. These are usually priced somewhere in the neighborhood of $16 to $20 American if you can find them. They are now sort of out of print, so you might have to pay a premium. I could see it going up to about $25. The reason I would suggest this one over some of the latter ones is because each starter deck comes with a pack of cards in it. So first chapter has many I'd say bang for buck, and also just for the collector and me. If I'm going to open one pack of cards, I'm probably going to go with first chapter. It has, it's the first in the set. It has some of the highest valued enchanted cards, which are some of the rarer cards in Lorcana. We'll go over those in a future video, but even some of the playable cards, the legendaries, the foils, they've done very well value wise, and you'd be surprised out of a first chapter pack what you can get value wise. You might even be able to make up the price of what it would be. I'm not saying you should do this. I never recommend opening packs for value. That's a dangerous game, but there's fun in it. Kids get excited. Grown-ups get excited by what might be there. And harkening back to my baseball card days, like who doesn't like opening a pack of cards? But the first chapter offers a lot of potential value if you know what you're looking for. And also, it's also the game mechanics are easier at that point. In the first two sets, they kept it very streamlined. They kept it easy and accessible. In the latter sets, since starting with Into the Inklands, and now we'll be getting into Arcasia's Island, coming out on March 7th in your local game store. These have additional mechanics. So if you have either a younger kid, or you're still a little timid, or you've worked your way through Gateway, but you're not quite ready to build your own decks or get out there or play in locals or competitive scene, I would suggest the first chapter if you can find it, and if you can't, I'd probably jump right to the Arcasia's Island starter decks coming out on March 7th. They will have a sort of a full swath of everything that's currently available in the game. They've added a new mechanic, I guess you could call it, in dual ink cards that are pretty cool. We can get into that in a future thing, maybe around the time Arcasia's Island comes out. We plan on cracking a few boxes as a family, opening up, having a family pack night on opening night. So probably subsequent to that, I'll maybe spend some time speaking about Arcasia's Island and what the differences are between this and earlier sets. But I think you can't go wrong with either of these. I think you can start here if you like. And even still, like in a starter deck, take a look here. You get a pack to open, which is great. A 60 card starter deck, so that's the same in any starter deck you get. You get a playmat that's basic playmat, damage counters, lore counter, a couple holographic cards, right out of the box, ready to play and fun. So that would be my recommendation. I would probably go first chapter if I could find it. Second chapter is Rise of the Floodborn. I would do that if it was substantially cheaper than first chapter, because there are some playable cards that when it comes time to build your deck, especially that Amethyst deck in the Floodborn, I thought that if that's the route you end up going, I don't want to get too high level here, but if that's the route you end up going, that's a pretty good starter deck, because you might want to acquire some of the singles that end up in that starter deck. But if you just want to jump on board with the current set, that's kind of what we're doing. We started buying, packs and cards and starter decks in and around December. So we were looking at Shimmering Skies, which was the 5th set, Azurite Sea, which is the 6th set. I mean, that was an easy sell. Stitch was right on the cover in his Buccaneer suit, and my kids just love Stitch. I still don't get Stitch, but like he's like Mickey Mouse for the new generation. So I dig it, and if just want the kids to be happy, if we're going to try and do this together, right? It really is about spending time with them first, and then enjoying a really fun strategic game second. So that would be my recommendation on the starter decks if you wanted to do that. So that's kind of the second tier. Once you've done Gateway, you move on to your starter decks. And again, you could never leave your house and just play against your family, teach people as they come over. And I think it would be relatively easy to do that, as long as you sort of have that inherent knowledge. You can start teaching people. You can try out the YouTube tutorials and the ones that Lorcana has on its proper website, but I just didn't find them. I found them useless, to be perfectly honest with you. So hopeful that this video will help you to start off on the right foot. So if you're sort of already past that, maybe you're in the starter deck phase here, you've been running around with that for a while, might be getting a little dry because you're playing the same cards all the time and you want a little bit more of a new challenge, then you get into building your own decks. So we have done that now a few times here, and what I've done is using the website dreamborn.inc, which I think is really helpful. First, what I did is this was time consuming, but I went through and I cataloged all of the cards that we had. regular, commons, super rares, foils, legendaries, enchanted. It's all here. And I've input all these cards. That was a weekend of organization to do that. But when I was ready to build a deck, I found it super easy to do it when I knew what I had. There's nothing worse than having stacks and stacks of cards. When and not really sure how to take it to the next set and how to build from that. So what I've done here is I've kind of broken it down, and I'll show you a few of the decks that my son and I have built. So I ended up taking him to the set championships at a local game store just to try things out. We played in set 6 championships. I did okay considering I've never played this before. Won a couple games, lost a couple games. My son didn't do as well, and it really had to came down to the deck construction. If you ever want to take Lorcana outside of your house and you want to be playing against others, I think realistically, if you're going to a game store or a Disney Lorcana challenge or something like that, you're going to run into people that have spent a lot of time figuring out what decks they want to play, optimizing it, buying the singles to flesh out their decks. But what we did the first time is I wanted my son wanted to do things his way. So I let him build the deck he wanted. It's featuring some of his favorite characters like Stitch, Rockstar, Chip and Dale, Mickey Mouse. He really enjoyed Merlin Crab, but and then some easier ones to easier cards and actions and songs that could be easily applicable. So easier lore gain or easier card draw. Those are things that he wanted to do. But ultimately, I knew this was never going to be a competitive deck because he was going to run into people that had really thought their thing through. And ultimately, that's what happened. He wasn't able to win any games. I felt like maybe he became a little disheartened, but he did learn something because what I had done is I had gone through and meticulously looked at, okay, what are my best cards and what's the best chance that I have to build a deck that would be competitive. And I wanted to show him this. So I went, this is, I think, a new iteration of it where I started playing around with it for set 7, but ultimately the bones of this were basically correct. So it hinged on the Clarabelle card. We had opened a lot of Shimmering Skies, and I think we had 3 Clarabelle legendaries already in our collection. Well, she's particularly advantageous in this combo. People argue that Blue-Green or Emerald Sapphire is not a very competitive deck. I think it's leaning more towards it in set 7. There's a lot of cards that will help it out and maybe bring it a little closer to meta relevance. But currently it's a tier 2-ish deck, and I'm fine with it because I actually really like the way it plays. It's a lot of fun. When it works, it's awesome, and your opponents don't know what hit you because nobody plays it. So but I built this deck with the idea of like, okay, I'm going to take the best cards that I have, find as many, and then follow some of the different, let's see here, decks, popular, some of the different trending and popular decks. So actually what I did was I built off of this one here. It has since changed as well. But when I looked at it, I'm like, okay, I have most of these cards. I can play this deck. I can play close to it. I had to supplement a couple ones in. I had to buy a couple singles ahead of the tournament. But for a guy who'd never played anything, was walking in blind against a bunch of, I mean, these people were studs. They knew how to play exactly. They knew everything that was going to happen before it happened. Their combos were on point. It would be intimidating if I hadn't been prepared. And so my son learned something that day. We walked out of there. He says, Dad, I don't like losing. I said, nobody does, son. It's okay to not want to lose. I don't want you to want to lose. He says, well, how do I get better? I said, well, we need to look at the cards we have. We need to figure out that maybe it's not all characters that you like or that you know or familiar with from the movies. They may not resonate with you, but sometimes you got to balance the cards you like with the ones that will win. And the light bulb sort of went off. And he says, okay, Dad, let's start trying to build a deck that has that. So I started looking at templates. We ended up sitting on Amethyst, Steel, and this deck may not survive into set 7, but because there is a lot of different cards and options coming out, I think it will regulate the meta and change things from we're coming in from 3 months ago now. I think there's going to be a pretty huge swing in the way that people play competitive decks from what I've learned and read. But at any rate, he liked the idea of, I think Amethyst is a good one for a kid to play. It's a lot of card draw. It's a lot of lore gain. And that's what we did. So we leaned into some of the cards. Any experienced player will tell you looking at this, well, this could be better. You could buy this card. You could buy that card. Yeah, we could. But right now I'm just trying to get my kid a little closer to being competitive, give him a chance. And there's some really staple cards from both sides of what is still probably a tier 2. Like most people would tend to play Amethyst ruby, or but hey, amethyst steel is cool. I like it. I think it's going to work out for him. I think it's his style of play. And we played it last night, and he really enjoyed it. And I had to go out. I bought a couple of Tinkerbells. We didn't have three copies of that. I went out and got a few small little cards here and there. Most of these we had already though, because we'd opened enough of set 5 and set 6 and a little bit of set 1, and then the occasional packs of 2 and 3. It all sort of fit together, right? So when it comes to deck building, look at what you have, catalog it, and then use the tools like Dreamborn has right here to find a profile for a deck based on popular, trending, whatever you like. You can even just put together like a color combo, like I want to play Emerald Ruby, and then start looking at, okay, well, I have a certain percentage in my collection. It'll cost me this much to get there. That might include enchanted, so start to factor that out. But again, it gives you, you can even do a sliding scale here, like what's got, I don't know, 70% of my deck. Okay, well, these are both starter decks. Probably not the best answer here. So maybe this is not the color for us based on what we have. But let's go into another color combination, like the one my son wanted to play initially, something like this. We start to see a few more. This Hades villains princes deck. Well, like we're 52 cents American away from getting there based on what we have. So it does require you kind of like, as you're opening packs, probably every few weeks, take the time to catalog it. I organize it by set and then color and then card number. So I'm typically not a very organized person, but I've gotten a lot of value out of organizing my Lorcana singles because I really enjoy playing. And I've even I went recently just to check out a local league night there. Because my son hadn't done so well in the set championship, I sort of regret bringing him out first time. I would have, been nice if he'd been a little bit more competitive. But again, it was a learning experience, and he's back on the train. We're playing again. He's looking forward to the chance to go out and try out a new deck here at some point with some other players that aren't his dad. But these tools that I'm showing you today, I think, can be very helpful for a beginner that's just kind of like their kid has come to them and say, I want to try this or I want to play this. And you want to encourage them because, like, the thought process that goes into a game like this for a 7 or 8 year old, like it's actually really impressive to see them work. It reinforces literacy skills. It's about planning, thinking, taking a look at the cards you have, understanding the theory of the game. And there's lots of other videos out there from really, really experienced and professional players that will far help you with game strategy. But in terms of like, what do I do to start? I think this is a great starting point here in Lorcana to get you started. So I'm excited to put this video out. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. I'd be happy to reach out. You can follow me on Instagram, Disney Dad Canada. And I'm just looking to slowly, as we start building and keep going with this, it's a way that I can document my journey with my kids, something that blends our love of Disney and cards and collecting and strategy, and just like a wholesome, fun family game that I think has been really good for us. And I'm really glad that I found it when I did. And just as we go through it, I'm hoping to share some of the info that I've learned so that maybe you don't have the same stumbling blocks that I do. I had, and at the same time, share some of the same joy and chat along and join the conversation on that. So thanks very much for tuning in and taking the time to look at this. And I look forward to putting out the next one. Till then, all the best.